13th, 2021 virtual Zoom meeting. Just going to read the Zoom rules. The town of Littleton began conducting remote participation / Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. That's almost here. 1 year anniversary. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. Those concerns are supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. The concern is that the chat function allows a parallel text conversation to the board's public meeting. Chat is essentially running commentary that is occurring but is not moderated or followed by the chair. All participants and listeners may not be aware of comments being made because some meeting participants join by phone and do not see these conversations. Another concern is conversations between residents within the chat room, which are not incorporated into the public record. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member from the public participating in discussion and sharing information during public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to the meeting. People that join in the Zoom meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you call in by phone, please use *6 to mute or unmute your phone. So that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion, we ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you've called in by phone, use *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, the participants should unmute, then state their names and addresses. After speaking, we request that the participant return their microphone back to mute. So Dave, I think Janet just texted me and she says she's running a little bit late and that she will hop on as soon as she can. So I guess you are our host, and is that it? Your host, and you're helping us tonight until we get there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Jim also has a meeting to get to tonight, so I'm going to get right into the public hearings on Birch Road with Civil Solutions. Hi, Jim.
Who do you want online?
Is that Kirk?
It's Civil Solutions, the first hearing.
Yep.
The Kirk or Kevin.
19 Birch Road, I think it's Kirk.
Okay. He's coming.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Kirk. How are you tonight?
Hi. Good. How you doing?
Good.
My name is Kirk Fitzpatrick. I'm with Civil Solutions, and I'm here on behalf of 19 Birch Road. I'd be happy to share the plan for you if you'd like.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So basically what I proposed before you is a new construction. Right now, I'll zoom in a little bit on the plan view. Currently, there's an existing house, a small house shown here, that's got a leaching area behind it. So this lot is at the corner of Birch Road and Emerson Drive. It's 18,000 square feet. So basically it's 100 feet along Emerson Drive by 180 feet along Birch Road. So initially we did some soils testing up in the area adjacent to Emerson Drive, thinking we could put the house down in this flatter area where the existing house was, and the grading just didn't work. So we actually went out and did another set of testing down around the old house and found there's actually more favorable material. The perks up in this area ranged from 14 to 17 minutes an inch, and the new perk rates down in this area are actually 3 minutes an inch. So it's better draining soil down around where the old house is. So what we're proposing to do is build a new 4-bedroom house that's actually going to front on Emerson Drive. The existing house will be raised. The existing paved driveway off Birch Road will also be raised, and the new driveway will extend out to Emerson Drive and is actually shorter than the old driveway. For the new system, it's going to come out to a new 1,500-gallon 2-compartment septic tank, and that's going to feed a Presby EnviroSeptic leach field that is going to be 16.5 feet wide by 32 feet long. We had a water table of 42 inches, so it is elevated out of the ground, and the system is designed with a 4-foot groundwater offset, so it meets new construction criteria. So the system as proposed meets all of the state and local code. What we're asking for a variance for is for a fill for the grading for the reserve area. So let me zoom in a little bit here. Basically, the reserve area is this box adjacent to the proposed system. And if that ever had to be built, which it's not going to be, the grading associated with it would actually be extend within 10 feet of the property line only along Birch Road. It still meets the 10-foot offset for the grading requirements along the back of the property and also along the adjacent lot line down the right side. But in all honesty, if this system ever had an issue in 30 years, the most cost-effective thing it'd be to do is rebuild it right back in the same spot. But that is the variance we're requesting, is for fill within 10 feet for the reserve area only for grading along Birch Road. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Great. Does anybody have any questions? Or should we have Jim to speed us along and why don't you talk about it, Jim, so we can get your perspective before we ask our questions. You might answer them.
Sure. So I actually asked Kurt to ask for that variance because of the reserve area. I just wanted to make sure the reserve area was taken care of. Again, it's not going to affect the current proposed construction of the site. Your concerns with the board is trying to minimize runoff onto other sites. The house is going, I mean, the new system is going to go on the site of the old house. That roof was probably a lot more impervious than the ground that they'll create for that septic system will be. So again, I think you were probably in a better shape grading, surface flow wise there. But I did want to make sure that their reserve area was covered in case it ever had to be, that it would meet your regulations as they exist today. So I don't really see an issue with it. There's plenty of room on either side as it's designed to grade. The new area that they're going to construct will be more pervious than the house that's being taken down. So,
Great. Anybody on the board have any questions for Jim or Kirk?
I have a question.
Sure, Louise.
What about the neighbor to the right as we're looking at the plan? Is there any issues with water running onto their property?
So in this property where the cursor is, the grade of the land, the topography extends a little bit off. It actually slopes up a little bit as you go over the lot line. So you're actually going to get almost the water that comes down roughly where the shed is going to continue to flow down between the grading for the system and the lot line. As you can see, the grading goes up as you go across the lot line. I guess I also wanted to add, I mean, one of the concerns I'm sure is runoff from this site. And as Jim said, the amount of impervious area, it's really being relocated to the front near Emerson Drive. My guess is that old driveway that's there probably contributed a lot of runoff into Birch Road. It's basically elevation 83 down at the street and goes up to 87 or 88 next to the house. So you have a 4-foot drop in about 30 feet. So you probably had a lot of water coming out into the street from Birch Road. With the relocated house and then the driveway extending off at Emerson, it's going to be fairly flat here. And if any water does come off the driveway, it's going to get caught by this catch basin right on the corner of the lot. That ties into the street drainage. So I think with this design, you have significant less potential runoff from the site.
Good. Kevin or Mike, any questions?
None here.
Just a couple questions. Kirk, the elevation on the left-hand side abutting Birch Road, it seems like you're at 85. How far is that from Birch Road?
So this is the edge of the, let me zoom in there a little bit. Right in here?
Yeah.
About 11 feet.
Yeah.
But it meets the 10-foot offset.
Yeah. But that was the offset in question, wasn't it?
So this is the grading for the system that's going to be constructed for the primary area. The reserve area, because the lot continues to slope, the fill would be within 10 feet if you had to construct the reserve,
I see it.
not the primary.
And you can't put the reserve between the trenches in this situation?
Not with a Presby system. And the Presby system gives you the best, the lowest profile as far as the grading requirement.
Oh, yeah, I know. I love the
Amount of grading associated with for this type of a system. I guess I also wanted to add, when they're also going to leave the vegetation along the back lot line here and in this area between the house and the lot line along Birch Road. So that area is going to remain vegetated.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Great. Dave, is there anybody with their hands up, any butters in the audience tonight?
Yes.
Okay, can you
We'll do one at a time.
Yep, state your name and your address, please.
Ray?
What's your address, Ray?
Ray, state your name and your address. Okay, anybody else?
Yep. Oh, hold on.
We'll come back.
Yep.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, state your name and your address, please. Hello? You guys have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, that was my fault.
And just to make sure, this is regarding the public hearing on 19 Birch Road, what we're discussing right now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. My name's Susan Bottomley. I live at 16 Cedar Road, so I'm the abutter to the right at the bottom half of your diagram here.
Mhm.
So my property will be next to where you're putting in the new septic system. So I just wanted to confirm that there wouldn't be any concerns. My septic system is in the backyard, located on the other side of the property here. I just wanted to confirm that I shouldn't have any issues with my septic systems once this one is installed.
Kirk, can you address that?
Yep, I'm happy to address that. This should not have any impact on any of the abutting properties. This system is about 30 feet off the lot line, and the toe of the slope, let me zoom in a little bit here. The toe of the slope in this area is about 12 feet off the lot line. You can see this grading actually continues to direct the runoff around the toe of the slope, because it rises up as you go across the lot line. So any water that falls in this area or comes off the new system is going to continue down and around the system as it currently does.
Okay, that was my only concern.
Okay, great. Thanks, Susan. And is Ray available to ask his question now? Ray, if you can state your name and address, please.
He's talking permitted, but I think there must be a problem.
Okay.
Ray, can you hear us? Can you hear us now?
He should be able to speak, but I'm not hearing him at all.
Maybe
Ray, raise your hand if you can hear us. Okay, he can hear us.
maybe his volume is down on his system.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Ray. He's now muted.
Does anybody know Ray? Can Ray text this question?
Hello?
We hear him now.
Oh, yeah, okay. I think I had an allow button. I wasn't checking. Sorry about that. No, just kind of the same question that,
Sorry, Ray, state your name and address, please.
sure, it's Ray Paquin, 15 Birch Road.
Okay.
And my question is basically similar to Susan. I've had some issues over the years with water in my basement, and I just want to be sure that any type of change here in the topography doesn't have an impact on me.
So again, you're right below the system here?
I believe so. Yeah, I'm 15, so I'd be to south of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So with this system, with the placement of the system, there actually should be less runoff coming off the property. And currently you have all this impervious area with the house and the driveway, which contributes to runoff down the slope and also out to Birch Road. And that area will all be soil and be stabilized with grass, because you can't let anything large grow over the system. So it'll all be stabilized with grass or potentially wood chips along the slope. But you should not have any increased runoff towards your property.
Okay, great.
Great, thanks, Kirk.
You're welcome.
So, what exactly is the variance? I guess we don't have it here in writing. That's what this kind of makes me. I mean, I understand what it is. You want less than 10 feet off the property line for the reserve area.
I'm happy to read it if you'd like.
Sure, I can't make the motion, but somebody else on the board, if you listen to Kirk and make the motion after he reads it. Go ahead, Kirk.
So variance is hereby requested from Littleton Board of Health Regulation 27 to allow fill required to meet minimum breakout grading requirements within 10 feet of a property line. The required fill would be necessary for the construction of the reserve area and would be within 10 feet of the property line along Birch Road only.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the plan as designed and presented.
I second.
Oh, you guys, you're just fighting. All right, so got a second. So we'll take a roll call. Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Gina Fratelloni,
Gino, yes.
Louise Nichols,
Louise Nichols, yes.
and Mike Zeldin,
Mike Selden, yes.
and Lisa Flanagan, yes. So thank you, guys. Thanks, Kirk.
Great, thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, you
Thanks,
too.
Kirk.
I guess we're a little too early for the next hearing. Well, we would have been on time, but should we move ahead with, well, I guess the Ivy Road Lake Drive, the abutters here? It might be too early. Hi, Anthony.
That one's probably important to wait until the time
Okay,
because of the abutters concerns and making sure they're available.
yep. Jim, do you have any, I know you have to leave. Do you want to say anything in the next, how many minutes we've got?
Sure. So maybe I can do a couple of things. First, Mike, I'm sorry. Working on trying to plan additional clinics this morning, and it wasn't until about 4 o'clock where I saw the state sent some additional data. I said I forgot to get Mike his data, so my apologies.
Don't worry, I'll wait for this later, Jim. Not to worry.
Yeah, no, just it was 4 o'clock. I saw the email. It's like,
It's all right. Keep
So
going.
kind of a quick and dirty of the numbers. The last 2 week period that we reported, so that would have been let's see, 2 weeks back, would have been December 13th through the first. Just got my notebook here. December 20th through the 2nd of January. Littleton had 46 cases. For the new 2 week period, Littleton has 70 cases. So if you look at the 27th to the 9th, which is that reporting period, that's now 70. You have 2 holidays in there. We have seen an increase in cases. in the past, probably 5 or 6 days. I'm sure attributed to holiday celebrations. With very few exceptions in all the 16 towns, the case numbers have gone up in towns. So for the last week, so from the 2nd to the 8th of January, there are 36 cases in Littleton. So it's still kind of staying on that 70 per 2-week track. This week, the 9th, we're only on Wednesday, so it's Saturday to Wednesday. So we have 2 more days left in this tracking period. We're at about 19 cases. So I'm not sure if they're slowing down just a little bit, which is my hope. And because the holidays hopefully are a little bit in our rearview mirror. So that's kind of the case count at this point for that those periods. As far as other COVID updates, the state continues to change they modify it, I guess. The state has a vaccine advisory group to help determine who should be in what phases of the state's program. And we, as a vaccine provider, have to comply with those priority lists. So right now, the agency has planned, and we have scheduled 2 first responders clinics because they're in that first phase, and those clinics will take place on the 20th and the 23rd to accommodate first responder schedules. Right now, I think we have about 350 people signed up between the 2 throughout our 16-town district. We're taking registrations from police and fire and EMS for the Monday clinic through the 17th and the Saturday clinic through the 20th, just so we have an idea of how much vaccine to bring. One of the, I don't want to say challenges, but with these vaccines, unlike flu, you can't just put it in a cooler and bring it. Vaccine's frozen, needs to be handled in accordance with the manufacturer's specifications to make sure that it's effective. There's a number of steps in that process, and we want to make sure that we're not on the news having thrown vaccine away because it gone bad, if you will. And we also want to make sure with the registrations that we plan the numbers tight enough so that we get all the doses that we can from the vials we thaw out into arms. So again, we're trying to manage that so that we have vaccine throughout the clinic. We are looking at clinics moving forward. I don't know what shape that'll take yet. Again, I spent most of today speaking with a couple of venues, speaking with Council on Agings, because they would be probably the first group in that second phase to get a sense of what might work for their populations. I've got emails out to nurses, primarily to start with the school nurses, to see what availabilities they may have, because that's a big part of what we would need. A venue, I think I can guess. Staffing, I really need to figure out. I think what's important to realize, for every clinic there's 2, because you have to have the clinic for the first doses, and then 28 days later, you have to have another clinic to make sure those people who got their first can get their second. If we set, what we're looking at is a regional approach in a single location where hopefully senior centers may be able to refer to or help register for. And so we're trying to do something longer term, in weeks as opposed to just 2 days and then 2 more days as in the first responders. I will hope to have more information about how that all shakes out next week as I get a sense of what's available out there for staffing for the clinics. Like I said, at this point here, that's probably again, it's not just staffing for a clinic. If I want to have something that's sustainable, I need to be able to put together a clinic schedule for numerous weeks just to make sure that I can deliver. What would be worse than not doing anything at all is to be able to overpromise and fail to deliver. So I really want to make sure whatever we do is tight going forward.
Great. Before we met, Gina was mentioning that the Rotary is offering volunteers. So should they contact you? Should Rotary contact you, or you've got enough volunteers?
So the big piece, so for the first responders clinic, I think we're good staffing wise. I know I have plenty of vaccinating staff. The Littleton Volunteer Corps and the Boxborough Emergency Reserve Corps have volunteers to help us on the outside. The Boxborough Fire Department's going to handle our observation area with a couple of EMTs so we can make sure the folks are safe. We've got enough nursing staff between our staff, volunteers, school nurses. So I think we're in really good shape as far as that goes. For the clinics moving forward, again, what we're looking to do is nail down vaccinate. That's the biggest part, is that vaccinating staff. So, and again, depending on the venue we can secure, that will probably determine the number of shots we can give and then the number of vaccinators we'll need.
Okay, so if Rotary is interested, you're really just looking for vaccinating staff.
At this point, yeah, that's probably the biggest. That's what I need to secure. With seniors, we have, the agency has pretty good experience doing senior clinics. So those big, massive clinics, those take a lot of flow staff. Hopefully, this will be big enough, but confined enough that we can handle it with a smaller directional staff, if you will. And again, the big piece is the vaccinating staff.
Okay.
Jim, it was a little muddled. You're continuing this. Are you describing the tail end of phase 1, which includes seniors who are in facilities, or are you already discussing the beginning of phase 2? I'm
discussing the beginning of phase 2.
Okay, so those are going to be people of a certain age and over, and they basically are in care-centric facilities. Is that the idea?
No, the long-term care facilities are being done by the federal pharmacy program, CVS, Walgreens. They're actually going into those long-term care facilities.
Okay.
So that's something that the state and federal government are handling. What we're looking for is, I think the top of the second phase, I haven't checked it today, they change it from time to time, are people over 75 and people with 2 comorbidities.
Okay. So that, other than the knowledge of age, the comorbidities are in the hands, allegedly, of primary care physicians
who don't seem to have started doing vaccinations yet. I don't know. That's one of the things.
Yeah, I'm not arguing about who's starting it. What I'm really questioning is that since primary care docs have the information at their disposal about who is or who isn't with 1 or 2 comorbidities, much less the age, you're still envisioning mass inoculation facilities for that group?
So
as well?
What we're trying to do with clinics going forward is to have something that hopefully will take us into the point where, the CVSs, the Walgreens, the primary care offices have vaccine and can stand up robust clinics for individuals in towns. We're trying to provide some kind of outlet for people in those priority groups. So we're talking with the state about how to handle the comorbidity question at the clinics.
Jim, is there anything that we can do to help you get those people to those vaccinating people?
So if you have we're looking at picking a day of the week where we're hoping that because of schools' hybrid models, that maybe we can pick up school nurses.
Mm-hmm.
But if anyone has nurses that, whether they're retired and are still licensed, that you certainly send their names my way. I'm more than happy to have that conversation with them.
Do you mind if we put that on LCTV, just like in search of nurses with a license to participate in vaccine clinics?
You can certainly do that and just give them my address.
Okay.
My email address.
All right. I know we've got to move on to the public hearing, but that's great. I think we should do that. We'll talk about that later, Janet, and maybe Scott. Okay.
Jim, one final question. If you have a chance tonight, shoot me the data. Okay.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right. So we have to move on to the 7:25 public hearing. We just had a little extra time, so we had Jim give us his COVID update. So we're going to open up the public hearing for Ivy Road and Lake Drive. We can get Ian.
Hi.
Great, thanks.
Hi, this is Ian.
What did you guys end up talking about? Were you able to get in touch with Chris Stoddard?
Jim, you address that issue?
So I talked to Chris Stoddard. It's my understanding that Ivy Road, and speaking with him, is a private road and not under his jurisdiction. So I think, based on that comment there, I think what's probably important going forward is, to talk with the folks on Ivy Road, make sure whatever work they're going to do doesn't impact the road and the abutters on that road. You know, it sounds like that work can be done. Again, I don't know who owns the private road, but it would be more discussion about who owns the road and making sure it's not impeded. Again, I think what we're talking about is 6-inch grading differences. So I think you probably have those kinds of differences just in a rough winter month on that road.
Okay. So Ian, did you have anything else?
No, at this point, from the last meeting, from where we left off, we had decided that it is unnecessary to have the swale going down to the right-hand side of the house, and that what is necessary is to put a berm to prevent any runoff from the road coming across our property, at least between the right-hand property line and the driveway. And I can certainly update the plan to incorporate that.
And Jim, that's okay because it's private property?
It's a private road, so they just need to, I don't know how many other houses are down the other side. Again, it's one of these things where, again, I'm not an attorney, but I think typically on private roads, individuals own to the center of the road or have right, I mean, it reverts back to them. So again, I'm not sure the legal mechanism for that, but we're not talking about a lot of grading. So I think that should be addressed with, you know, the abutters on that road to make sure that whatever's done doesn't impede traffic.
So the owners at Ivy Road should get some legal advice, do you think, too?
I guess my thought is whether the engineer and the abutters get together and figure out what's going to be done and make sure they all agree that that's going to be an acceptable decision for the design work on that road.
I think let me just say one thing here. I mean, if the owner of the road is by the frontage that they have on the road, we are doing work on the portion of road that is our ownership, and we are doing it in favor of the abutter to the right. And from what I recall, from what we discussed, was that the general runoff stays on the road over the current proposed driveway. And that should not impose on anybody else other than us. And we can make sure that can be done. And if there's anything illegal about that, then that should be brought up. I mean, I don't see that there's anything illegal about it. If we have to contact an attorney on that, we can do so, but I don't think that's necessary.
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Jim. Is that you?
So, you know, I guess my thought would be probably prudent to see what the grading might consist of, even if it's a kind of a sketch plan, then everyone can kind of agree that it is an issue, isn't an issue. And then if you wanted to condition the granting of the variance for the fill within the lot lines, my suggestion would be, they need to get a wall design and get it approved by the building commissioner because the height's going to be high enough to do that. They'll need to do the regrading in such a way that it doesn't impact the road or the abutters. And I think that would be a way to address this.
Okay. I mean, can we, if we can close the hearing, that's the most important thing. I mean, and we can certainly address it and make sure that we are meeting what we've discussed today.
And again, if you're comfortable, Lisa, with making the variance, if you would feel more comfortable that the attorney for the property just get a note from the attorney, explaining the rights that the applicant has along their frontage, because as Ian's described, that's where the work needs to be done. That could go in the file with everything also.
Okay, what does everybody on the board think?
I like the idea of getting a statement from their attorney.
I agree. It provides some assurance that the private road, shall we say, privilege or situation is being, shall we say, not taken advantage of and being pursued in the way that Ian described. I agree.
I agree. And Ian, weren't we talking about a clay swale on the right-hand side?
Yeah, that's what, yeah, that was originally asked for. And at first I put in a trench drain. They didn't like that. Then they asked, in preference to that, a clay swale, which is what I did put on the last plan. However, they said they weren't even really interested in the clay swale as long as we put on a 6-inch berm to prevent any water from running down there. And the reason that the clay swale really doesn't serve any purpose is that there's very little water running down there, and it can comfortably run over land. And if we prevent any road from the road going down there, then we're really taking care of any runoff that's going to affect the abutter in any way. And that was essentially where their engineer, that's what they said. I mean, that's kind of, they said they didn't care about the swale as long as.
Amato?
Sorry?
Was it John Amato?
Yeah. I don't know if he's here tonight, but that's certainly what he said last time. I think Jim
Is here.
Oh, Jim, do you recall that?
I think their emphasis was really on getting that berm put in there to try to prevent the water from going onto the abutter's property.
Right.
All right, so are there any abutters here?
Lisa, there is a, someone's hand up. It's DAREM.
Okay, can you state your name and your address, please?
Hi, Greg Barron, 10 Ivy. Can you hear me?
We can, yep.
Okay, good, yeah. So, yeah, I know with conservation, there's like orders of condition. So if there's any approval, I'd like to have some type of statement that the road will be graded such that the water will travel down the road and not actually end up, going over the edge back towards our spot in between the two places. So is that what we're talking about here, or?
That's correct. That is correct. That's what that berm is for, is to prevent any water from the road traveling down the right-hand side of our property.
Okay, right hand as looking, okay, in between our two places is what we're
Yes,
talking.
in between your property on the right-hand side to ours. Right.
Ian, can you share your screen so
Sure.
that's a bit more clear for all of us?
Okay, here's the section of the road where it is requested that we make sure that the water stays on Ivy Road. I just want to make one thing quite clear here. There's not going to be really any changes of grade here. There's a small amount of grade changing here where the driveway goes up. So it goes down and back up here. So the water can certainly run across the driveway. It's just a matter of making sure that we add a fair amount of material here to make sure the water continues down Ivy Road here and not down here.
I can, yeah.
Right, and this
Can you hear me, John?
Sorry? Anyway, this is where we were going to put the swale, and that swale is way over designed for any purpose of any water running down here, so we're not going to put it there.
You're just thinking a berm in the corner. Okay, is there anybody else that has any questions? I think John Amato was on.
Thank you very much. and you described it quite well. The
Don, we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? I am unmuted. Let's see.
Hey, John?
Just get closer to your mic, John.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Ian, thank you very much. You described the expectation perfectly. The concern is that the abutter's property is pretty small compared to the potential water that comes down across the street, and could, with minor grading changes that were done incorrectly, could quickly flood onto Greg's property. So having a little berm there, it doesn't have to be much. And just as I mentioned, there's a tree line that runs right on the property line there. And it already has a berm, but it stops at the property corner. So really it's just a continuation of that small berm. It shouldn't be a big effort or a lot of material in that regard, but it's just making sure that regardless of what the contractor does, Ian's expectation for the water to flow down the road will continue. And I think that's the best solution for the long run.
Yeah, I can certainly put a note on the plan to state precisely that. So.
Thank you very much, Ian. I appreciate that.
Okay, so Jim, going back to what you said, if we felt comfortable and Ian wants to close the hearing, what's the next thing that what should we vote on? You said there was a wall and the building inspector and.
So I guess what I would suggest is, what Ian's probably looking for is approval on the variance, because he'll need to do a little bit, add some details to the plans as we've described in the meeting here. But if you wanted to, if you were inclined with conditions to grant the variance, the conditions I would is get a statement from the owner about the ability to regrade the private road in a manner that it won't affect other people, won't affect the travel of the road. The wall is going to require approval by an engineer and by the building commissioner because it's considered a structure given its height and the fill, not having fill on the other side of it. And then we just get a new plan showing those little bit of detail changes. So, and Ian's going to put a note on there about, and we typically too, when there's a grading situation, or if something's being placed and the lot is tight, we put notes on there about critical distances and offsets and careful construction required. So what we would do at the end of construction is make sure that things are in place as the plan described.
So grant the variance with the stipulation of the wall being approved, the grade being done appropriately.
Letter from the attorney.
And a letter from the attorney saying that it's okay for them to do this on the private road.
Correct.
All right. What do you guys think? Board? Does anybody want to make that motion with those stipulations? No?
I have no problem making a motion the only thing we have jurisdiction on, if I remember correctly, is and Jim can correct me, the only thing we can really do as a board is approve the variances requested.
Because your regulation governs what's happening with the fill to lot lines, this gives you the ability to kind of make sure that the negative effects of getting fill too close to lot lines are mitigated in the design process.
Okay, that makes sense.
Anybody else? Louise, you unmuted. You have something to ask or say?
I don't have any questions, no.
Kevin and Gino? No. Anybody else, Janet? Raise their hands. All right. So do we want to have a motion to accept the variance of the 10 feet within the lot line with a stipulation that the wall is inspected by the building building inspector. The
It needs
berm
to
is,
be, I'm sorry, it needs to be designed and approved by the building commissioner.
okay, all right. That the wall is designed and approved by the building commissioner.
Yep.
That the berm is placed correctly, and that an attorney okays that kind of work on a private road. Does anybody want to make that motion?
Can we just say what you said? Can we just say?
And we, Janet?
I'd like to,
Yes, that's fine.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Sorry.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I'll do roll call. Kevin Baker. You got to unmute, Kevin.
Kevin Baker, no.
Gino Fratelloni. Gino, you got to unmute.
Mute me for? That's why you can hear me. All right. I say yes.
Louise Nichols.
Louise Nichols, yes.
Mike Zeldin.
Mike Sheldon, yes.
Lisa Flanagan, yes. So you still have a laundry list, Ian, but
No, understood.
okay.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Jim, you got to leave?
Yes, yeah, I need to leave for another meeting, so good
Okay.
night, everybody.
I
And
sent-
Mike, I'll get you that stuff tonight.
Thanks
Can I
a lot.
send you a-
Appreciate it.
Jim, I'm sorry, I sent you a text too, but you can answer it tomorrow. Not a big deal.
Okay,
Thank you. Good night. Thanks for your help.
yep, bye-bye.
Bye. All right. On to the COVID update. Scott, do you want to update us first?
I know Jim touched on the Boxborough clinics. We're scheduling first responders for the 20th and the 23rd. That'll be in Boxborough. The Littleton Volunteer Corps will be assisting with that, as well as the Boxborough Volunteer Corps. And that'll be held at the Boxborough Regency. So, and again, that's for first responders. As we were saying in the beginning of the meeting, several of us, first responders, fire, police, and whatnot, have also taken advantage of the other clinic that was in Leominster this past Monday, today, and this coming Friday. So it kind of gives us all the ability to split everybody up, and if there's any adverse effects, going through the whole process, we can kind of spread it out so that we can minimize any issues. But other than that, knock on wood, everything is going pretty smooth. Just looking forward to getting over this. And again, I'm talking to Jim on a regular basis, and he's filling us in, on the numbers daily. So unfortunately, everybody needs to still stay vigilant because the numbers are up there right now. I think they're higher now than they were after Thanksgiving and Christmas. So.
Well, Katrina's on, so she'll let us know. So, good. How are you guys doing on gloves? We're having a hard time finding gloves.
We are as well. Actually, I have bought out all of the medium, large, and extra large gloves from Littleton Lumber.
Oh, you're the ones.
Yep, because I need them for the ambulance. It's been a challenge, even just getting them through our suppliers. Unfortunately, probably 3 weeks ago, we received some deliveries of supplies. We're trying to figure out where it was coming from. They were ordered back in March. So some of that stuff is just finally coming through now.
I've been trying to squeeze my man hands into smalls. It's not working. Not fun. All right. Anybody have any questions for Scott?
No.
No. Great. Thank you for everything you're doing, Scott. Great. Want to go on to Katrina? Hi, Katrina.
Hi, everyone. So I heard I missed Jim's update. I'm assuming you can see my slide kit now.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to start with the state data. Like I said last week, they changed the daily dashboard, and I'm still learning how to use the new presentation, which has been interesting. This is all 4 graphs of the 4 main metrics. I've filtered the dates to start at the beginning of November and stopped on January 9th, which is the last date that the data should be complete for. It takes a few days for the data to trickle in. So we're looking at the beginning of this week to have, or end of last week to have complete data. So that would be Saturday. So you can see everything's in cases are trending upwards, test positivity, hospitalizations, deaths all continue to go up. So this is the graph of the number of tests that the state has conducted. And if you look, you can see the dip around Thanksgiving, which happens every holiday. And then we held somewhat level for a while. And then we had a dip at Christmas and it stayed low for New Year's. So this was a longer dip than we've experienced to date because of the double holiday. And then it looks like testing is picking back up. So hopefully that will return to close to pre-holiday levels in the next week or so. So this is the test positivity graph where we look at the entire states in the dark blue. The current test positivity is 7.6%. When you take out higher education, which is down here at 0.7%, the rest of us have a test positivity about 8.7%. That's that symptomatic testing that's really driving our state's testing program. So keep in mind, while we had this little lowering over the last couple of weeks as the testing started to pick back up again, we're still higher than we were before Christmas, which is, we were around 6 before Christmas for a while. So we are trending upwards on the test positivity. So this is the graph of the number of confirmed cases over since the beginning of November. And again, the trend line, you get the trend line, but you also see the individual day number of cases diagnosed behind on the bars. We are about 1.5 weeks after New Year's. So again, holidays really delay the data coming in, especially holidays that decrease testing accessibility and just the number of tests being done. So we are still kind of in this period where we don't see everything. Another week or so needs to pass before we can kind of get a better picture of how the holidays really impacted things. And unfortunately, we are heading back into a 3-day weekend where testing will decline again. So we're still running a little blind. But as you can see, this dip right here is the Christmas, New Year's time period. And then since then, we've been on the way up again. The incidence rate for the state is now 78 per 100,000. Before Christmas, it was at 58.3 per 100,000. So our incidence rate across the state has increased significantly in the last 2 weeks. And then the other thing I've pulled out is the number of cases by age group. This number, if you remember, for weeks, it was the 20 to 29-year-olds who were leading the pack. And I know that there are more people in the 0 to 19 age group, but what was notable to me is this, the proportion of cases this group increased by the most over the last the last week period. So last week there were 10,600 cases in the 0 to 19 age group, and this week we have 14,000 cases. And that's an increase of about 30%. And the other groups, 20 to 29 increased about 25%, 30 to 59 range from 14% to 17%, 60 to 79 are both at 10% increases, and there's only a 5% increase in the amount of cases in the 80 plus group. So there's something happening in our lower age group now that I find worrisome, and hopefully that will turn around. But this is another way of looking at age group differences. This is the test positivity by age group. And so you can see that for the most part, the test positivity line is pretty flat. Like, it hasn't gone up and it hasn't gone down for a while, except for maybe the 20 to 29-year-olds where it has declined over the last few weeks. The one, again, notable thing is this dark blue line, which my cursor is on, is the 0 to 19-year-olds. And they have experienced an increase in test positivity over the last 2 weeks. So 2 weeks ago, it was at 16.5%. Last week, it was 18.4%. And this week, it's 19.5%. So that is the one group that has had a jump up in the last couple of weeks. So everyone else has been flat or even declined a little bit. So again, this 0 to 19 group is not something to ignore. It's something we should keep an eye on to see if trends change, especially since we're talking about schools.
Katrina, is there any way to break that down even more?
That is one thing I have been wishing for since
I don't want
the beginning of
I don't want
this.
to give you any more work, but I'm just wondering if that's a possibility.
Unfortunately, the state presents it in this block of 0 to 19. And it's really unfortunate that they do that because it really does not help us make decisions on which age groups really impacted. Based on other data that we see from the United States and other states, the 0 to 4 groups the lowest, the next one would be 5 to 9, 10 to 14, and then a 15 to 19-year-olds tend to look more like your young adults at 20 to 29. So each age group, the incidence rates usually increase as you go up in age, but unfortunately, the state of Massachusetts does not present it more broken down in groups where we could really help make decisions for schools. So that's one of the things I'm actually quite angry about. So this is the best I can do for you.
Excuse me. Aside from schools, though, the other thing that may or may not be informative is among the groups that you've been discussing, the positivity and the rise in cases, which group contributes the most to use of hospital facilities?
The older age brackets contribute the most to the hospitalization group. So that is,
so if you
age, that increases your risk of hospitalization and death.
Okay, so if you went back and looked at hospitalizations and did something like this, call it hospitalization by positivity by age group, you would.
And I can't do that with this data. The state would have to do that.
No,
Yeah.
it's there. I know they have it because that's where they're shifting a lot of. Never mind. They're just shifting a lot of facilities and for I guess it's from the 50 and up groups.
Yes, it is the 50 and up group that seem to be more likely to be hospitalized. I know the state does present the age, the average age of cases and average age of hospitalizations and average age of death. And as you expect, they increase, but I can't remember those exact values off the top of my head.
Yep.
But the other part is like the more people are moving around, the more likely they are to give COVID to somebody else. So the more any of these test positivities, when you talk about a state wanting to keep their test positivity percentages at 5%, and every one of these age groups are above 5%, that's a problem. So that could reflect that there's not enough testing happening in those age groups in order to identify cases early and break chains of transmission, or that there's just widespread cases in that age group. It's a combination of the two. So like I said last week, that testing in a more routine testing would be really beneficial to cut those chains of transmission, and our test positivity by age group show us that which groups are having the highest and could benefit from some additional testing happening. So this is hospitalizations and deaths. We continue to have over 2,000 hospitalizations a day, although there seems to be a little dip in the very end here, but I can't tell if that's a data reporting delay. So that's hospitalizations. There, 87% of hospital beds in Massachusetts are occupied, which is a similar percentage compared to last week when I reported to you, but 79% of ICU beds are currently occupied, and that's an increase from 75%. So that is going upward, unfortunately. I know they've opened up the field hospitals and they've, not doing elective procedures. They're doing everything they can to keep the number of beds open. So the number of beds they've actually used is increased, or have available overall is increased. So the proportion seems similar, but they've actually increased the number of beds for COVID patients. So this is a troubling trend. And then deaths continue to trend higher. We're now around 70 deaths reported each day, an average of. So that's unfortunately going in the wrong direction too. So we have our Littleton data, and then just the same old color coding scheme. I quickly graphed the 70 cases that Jim just reported in this meeting. So that represents data from December 26th until whatever, so the January 9th. December 26th to January 9th, we had 70 cases in Littleton. Compared to 2 weeks ago, that would be comparing it to the 12/30. That would be the last day of that period, or the last time he reported it 2 weeks ago would be 39 cases. So not quite a doubling in the number of cases in the last 2 weeks. That would be 8 weeks in the red when we get that data tomorrow.
That's also during a time where not that many cases, not many tests were done too.
You got it. Yes. Unfortunately, you'll see later, Littleton had fewer tests, a significant proportion reduction in that time period. So this is the week over week graph of cases in Littleton. Tomorrow we'll add the 70 or whatever the state reports out tomorrow. Again, we're heading up. We're at the highest level we've been. So this is the incidence rates in all of those areas that we've been tracking. This everywhere is red at this point. The state, again, I told you it was 78 today based on today's report that's on the daily dashboard. Last week it was 61, so we've even had a significant increase in the rate across the state in just 1 week. Every area's rise is pretty high. I took our border community and I was noticing that a large number of cases were in air because of that outbreak at Devens. So I took, when you look at the border communities with air as reported, the rate is 34.6. But when I take out air, trying to deal with how to deal with Devens, so it makes it more similar, they go down to 20.
Is that the Shirley?
Yeah, is it Dev? I think Devens has one, Shirley has one, Concord, they all have an outbreak going right now. Littleton's had 45 cases last week with the rate of 32.9, and we know that nearly doubled. So we'll expect this to be much higher tomorrow. 45. And the graphs, I can tell you that the state went up. I can tell you Littleton went up. So these graphs will start trending higher rapidly tomorrow. So this is the test positivity data. You can see that there was a 10% to 30% decrease in testing, depending on which area we're talking about. There's just a lot, and this is the period between December 19th and December 19th and January 2nd, which is captures both holidays. So this 10 to 30% decrease is a significant reduction in tests. So while we saw that the rates last week were kind of holding steady, our test positivity, because there were just fewer tests happening. So people who were going to get a test were more likely to be symptomatic and need a test and be a case. All the test positivity proportions increased as a result. So Littleton had 1,100 tests. That was a 20% decrease compared to 2 weeks ago. And the test positivity was 4.24%. So we'll see where we are tomorrow. But again, test positivity was kind of slowed as we hit this holiday period, and we will see what happens tomorrow. So, and then on my last graph is the I just want to end on the number of new cases by week here in Littleton. This is from the start of the pandemic. So you can see our spring numbers were very low, and then we were low for a while, and we're going to be at the highest we've been to date when we look at this tomorrow. So I know we're on an upward swing, and most of us haven't been sick, so there's still a lot of people who are susceptible to get COVID right now in our population. The vast majority of us are still susceptible. So this is concerning that we are trending upwards, and it hasn't slowed to stopped yet. So the holidays will have an impact on our numbers. So the cheese is always, basically COVID's everywhere. You got to wear your mask. You have to distance. Please try to limit number of in-person gatherings you have. If place is crowded, maybe try not to go there unless you have to, or limit your time in crowded settings. But then, I'm hoping that the discussions are still ongoing about testing in schools. And I love that the vaccines are starting to roll out to our first responders and others soon. Those are all things that will help over time. But we need to keep our rates down so that we can, those vaccines can have a chance to work quicker. And then I keep talking about these chains of transmission, which again, everything you can do to every time you work from home, if you're able to, if you don't go have an in-person gathering that isn't essential, things like that right now would really be helpful to break chains of transmission. Go seek testing if you have symptoms or know you've been exposed. Stay home if you have symptoms. Things like that would really help to reduce spread in our town, in our state. Things are not looking good across the country. They're really predicted to be very, let's just say it's not promising over the next few weeks. So everything you can do to kind of rein it in right now would be really beneficial to everyone. And then the last thing, I know I talked about this last week, but a number of people who I have been learning from in epidemiologists and public health officials have been really pushing to check your quality of your mask and the fit of your mask. I know there's a lot of people they just slide down or there's gaps in them, but multi-layer masks that cover your nose and your chin and your cheeks so the air is not sneaking around the sides. And just making sure that you're breathing through it and not around it, basically, so that you can protect yourself and others as best you can for right now, especially where things are, there's more prevalence of COVID everywhere. So we're trying to increase your quality of your mask so you reduce your risk as best you can when you have to go in public. And that's all I have this week. Unfortunately, we're still looking for the data to catch up. So it'll be another week before I can really, we'll have a better idea of what's going on.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments for Katrina? Mike, you have anything?
Nope. Virus is out of control, as usual.
Yep, 45 cases last week. Wow. Oh, boy.
Okay. Thanks, Katrina.
Welcome.
Anybody else have any COVID updates? I saw Corey was on earlier.
Everything.
I believe she had a work meeting, so she had to leave.
Anybody else have anything to add? Panelists?
No, I hope next week will be better than this week.
Hands up, Janet.
Yes, Lisa, you have one hand up. John?
John, can you state your name and address, please?
Yeah, it's John Kurzwick, 171 Hartwell. So I'd like to actually add some good news to the discussion on COVID-19. The New England Journal of Medicine just they published an article out of Sweden, and what Sweden did, I think most people know, they kept all their kids in school under the age of 16. Secondary higher education, they did do some remote learning. But anyways, researchers finally had a chance to go back and take a look at the data for kids that stayed in school during the pandemic. So they divided it between November and January data, and then they looked at November and February data, and then they looked at February to June when their school year ends. And what they found is that no kids, now this is 1.9 million kids, by the way, no kids died of COVID-19. The hospitalization rate was 0.77 per 100,000. I think this is clear data and supported data for having kids in school. And because this isn't the only study that has shown that, for some reason with the kids, and some people think it's T-cell immunity that the kids have, but the kids really aren't affected by this. They really aren't. And I'm going to send that to the board. I'm also going to be sending it to the school committee, because we really need to be driven by data. And when you get a study like this, a retrospective study like this, that looks at 1.9 million people and can't find any COVID deaths, I think that's eye-opening. I also have a little bit of a problem with the data presentation. I was in the process of making a report here for the Board of Health, but I just haven't been able to complete it. But one of the questions that came up from Mike Zeldin was, what percentage of the people are making up the hospitalizations in Massachusetts? And that data actually is in the report, the Mass Department of Health report. You just have to scrub it out. It's not that easy, but I have it right here in front of me. And just real quick, people under the age of 60 are making up 80% of the cases in Massachusetts right now, quote unquote cases. But they only account for, let's see, where is it here? They only account for 18% of hospitalizations and 7% of the reported deaths in the 2-week period, most recent. However, the 80 plus, they made up 4% of the cases, but they made up 42% of hospitalizations and 60% of deaths. This really corroborates, and we can continue to track this if the board wants to track it, but that data is in the report. It just has to be scrubbed out. And then I'll make one final other point that I think is good news too, which is ICU bed usage in the state of Massachusetts. It's still about 20% below the peak in I think it was April or May. And that's good news, because to me, that's a leading indicator of where mortality is going to go. The people that get sick, they get shortness of breath, they call 911, and they end up in the ICU. And if that stays flat, that's a good thing. And I think that's something that we should add to Katrina's report, or somebody should start tracking that, because to me, that's you want to keep your eye on that ICU bed usage. If that pops up, that's right. You should be scared, because that's an indicator of people showing up at the hospital. So anyways, I think there's some good news in all the data. We just have to be careful about getting too down and out on some of the other data, because I think it can be misinterpreted. So anyways, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, John. Does anybody have any comments about what John had to say at all? Okay. All right. So no, you said Corey is gone. I see Anthony. Katrina briefly mentioned testing. Anthony, I didn't know if you had anything more to add. I know that I talked to Mike earlier this week, and he said that you did meet with Maramis, and then the state came out with an option too.
Yeah, that's right. We did. We had a great conversation with Maramis, and Mike Font was going to take the lead on that. And no sooner did we finish that meeting, it was within the hour that the governor announced the pool testing. So, certainly it's and it would be, at least in the start, it sounds like it would be for free to start it off. So I know the school department is following up on that, and I haven't heard back from them yet on it.
Yeah, Mike said that he wanted to meet with his board. They're meeting tomorrow. but that, and Ali will quote, because I asked him if I could use this, that they're committed to going through the process to evaluate both programs to see if one or the other works for the town. So there was a question, somebody, I don't know if it was an email, Janet, that you sent me today, somebody recommending, that we support testing in the school, but she thought that there was a deadline. Do you know about that, Anthony, for signing up for the school testing through the state?
It was the January 15th, so
Yeah.
they have time.
2 days. That's
Lisa,
time.
there is a hand up in the audience, Andrea.
Could I ask you a question? Could I make a comment?
Sure, okay, sure, Mike.
Right. Anthony, I really appreciate you picking up on this and pushing forward on it. I'd like to point out that the longer the testing begins in the schools here or anywhere, this goes for any of the school systems, the longer we wait for that testing program to start, the higher risk to the population persists. So if you're worried about dialing for dollars, I think it might be worthwhile to include what the cost would be for the longer that you wait, because when these curves go up for Littleton, that means job loss, that means income loss, that means tax revenue loss. There are a whole bunch of very practical things to get lost over the course of the next 12 to 24 months. And if
Mike, I don't think it had anything to do with dollar amounts. We weren't concerned about
because
that. That's not a factor when it comes to public health.
Well, maybe not during your watch, but all I have to tell you is that this board and others have been pointing out the value of testing from the very beginning, even when, shall we say, it wasn't as popular as it's become. And it's only recently that people have, shall we say, gotten more aggressive about it, especially with regard to the schools. We're glad to see it. Just don't want to, I'm just hoping that we can get this going before very long. Otherwise, you're going to see that the vaccination program won't rescue us.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. I concur on some of the stuff that you're saying right there. We're going to stay on top of it. It's an important topic.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be on the meeting tomorrow. Does anybody else, Katrina, do you present to school committee tomorrow night?
I will be there tomorrow.
Okay. Mike, are you interested in joining us? Or are you busy?
If I can get out of the other 3 meetings, yes, I will.
Okay. That's great.
One thing about testing is I totally respect John Kay's sharing the studies with us, and I've been trying to keep my finger on it too, because this is what I do for my job. And these studies are encouraging, and I definitely want to keep our schools open, but they also have some major limitations. And the one thing that we can do to get past those major limitations is to bring testing right to our population and keep track of it locally. So this would be a huge thing for, getting a baseline so we know what we're looking at, and then seeing where we can go to open schools if possible, given what we know. But fully on board if we can bring it here to help us in multifaceted way.
Right. Kevin, you had that, I don't know if you have, this is a question about the school testing, because I'd like to make sure that Anthony can stay on when we talk about what you talked to Kristen with about that testing site.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on the letter that we had received from the resident today, as well as the information we received regarding the PCR testing last week.
Can you, what exactly, what letter was that? I just want to
I think it was from a resident on New Estate Road, just in support of the PCR testing. And I guess I just wanted to gauge the board to see if the recommending of the pool PCR testing in the schools in an effort to suppress the virus and keep schools open is something the board could would make a recommendation to the school committee to move forward with, one way or the other.
I would say whatever the school committee, they're the ones that are, or whatever the schools are going to do, they're, I know Anthony said nothing about cost regarding public health, but the staffing and the resources that you need to, I think that would depend on which version they go with, and the staffing and the resources that they need to get it started with. I'm happy to recommend either one of them. But
So
if
just a recommendation of PCR testing, pool testing in general, just to keep the schools open and suppress the spread of the virus.
I think we're all in agreement for that.
Good.
Mike, obviously, right?
I don't know. I mean, we've been talking about this and pushing for quite some time. So, I mean, if the school committee needs support from us right now, there's a lot of deafness, and I don't think they're deaf. They hear it.
We may just want to make it official so there's no question. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Any other hands up, did you say, Janet?
Yes, Andrea Poulin has her hand up.
Hey, Andrea, can you state your name and your address, please?
Hi, Andrea Poulin for Sleigh Ride Lane. I have Kristen Sloboda here with me, and I think she had spoken directly with Kevin, but I'm a physician assistant. I've been working for 20 years in the industry or the field of medicine, and I have experience in emergency medicine and surgery, and have recently opened up a med spa in Westford, and we have been doing antibody tests on people per request, and recently acquired or ordered antigen tests, rapid antigen tests.
Excuse me one second, Andrea. That was something that I was going to talk with Kevin about during our correspondence, unless it's about the schools right now and testing. We'll get to you in a second.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So are your comments about the school testing?
No, it was for the community.
Okay, all right. Can we get back to you on that?
Yep.
Thanks. I'm going to have Kevin explain that when we get done with the COVID update. Any questions or comments or anything that anybody wants to make about the COVID update? All right. So Mike and Kevin and Anthony, well, we'll see. Did you say, Kevin, yes? Will you be there tomorrow night? Oh, Katrina said she'd be there tomorrow night. And Mike, if you can get out.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So Anthony will be at school committee meeting tomorrow night. See what you guys have to say. But you're going to stay on because I got some other questions for you. Okay. All right. So what is it, Janet? You were smart. Nobody's got their hands up, so we can move on. All right. I guess now we can have Kevin mention what Andrea was talking about with Kristen.
Sure. Well, I'll let Andrea explain her operation.
Okay. Can you? Okay. But you need to could you enlighten us about what you did for the research that I asked you to do about that?
Sure. So I'd spoken with Kristen about the operation that they are looking to implement for Littleton, not just for Littleton residents, but a by appointment only drive up facility for, I guess it's rapid antigen testing. There's a cost to that. And they're in need of space. I don't believe it's covered by insurance. So I think there's a bunch of questions that need to be asked of Andrea and see if it might be a good fit and a benefit to the town. That's why they're here.
Okay. And so Kristen's on board on the line too?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. I guess, sorry, Andrea, but we just had to close that topic first before we got going.
That's
on
okay.
yours.
And to also go back to the school, I don't know what is involved in the school testing, but that's something that we could also discuss if that was something you were interested in. Anyway, so I live in the community. I have a med spa in the next town, and we have been in touch with the Department of Public Health in the state, and they are very excited for as much testing information as they can get. So we registered with them. We have the go-ahead from them. We started doing a few rapid antigen tests like outside at my office. the beginning of this week, and we have, you know, the ability to, we're supposed to report it to the DPH at the end of each day. So we just sort of initially, we had found some space and just wanted to get the okay from the town that we could do this. And then somehow I think Kevin and Kristen connected, and there was maybe more interest in doing it and offering at a discounted rate to the community or something like that.
Well, we
So-
had originally approached the town offices, and the town offices didn't feel it was a good spot there. So Joe Layden had said that maybe there would be a good spot at the point, and then unfortunately that didn't seem like a good fit, conflict of interest or whatever. So then we went out on our own and approached John from FIBA. So we've been in contact with him. We did it on our own. And so
we have, you know, space available that he's willing to give us there, which, you know, we're happy to use if that's the case, you know, I guess what. If that works, you know, if you, I don't know, I didn't really understand if Kevin was interested in maybe us working with the town and setting something up near the town hall or something, so that residents would have easier access. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be.
So what I understand from Kevin, it's not just for Littleton residents, it's for anybody that, by appointment only, for anybody in the state not covered by insurance. I would assume Kevin mentioned that you wanted to do it at the library front. I was thinking that that probably would be too busy with the construction going on, so maybe another site would be better. I thought maybe IBM's, well, it's by appointment only, so it's not like you would have miles long, you know, cars waiting. So I was thinking IBM because nobody's really working at IBM, but you might not even need that much space. But want to ask Anthony and Scott about, you know, first liability for the town for you guys to do this here. You know, what kind of staffing will you have? What kind of staffing do you need? Or is it just you two?
There's about 4 or 5 of us trained nurses or PAs, and we don't need any equipment or anything like that. We have all of our own stuff. We do need an indoor space as it's getting colder out. We can't be standing outside for 6 to 8 hours. So that would be the only thing.
So I have business liability insurance, and I can add whatever address we'll be setting up as a test site to that insurance. So that will cover us for that. And we plan to test maybe 3 people every 15 minutes or 4 every half hour or something like that, if there's the need. And it would be by appointment only. We would have them pull up in their cars, just like you do when you go to urgent care at Emerson. And then we would come out with a cart that has all the supplies already labeled, and then just go from car to car and swab them, and then put the swabs back into the buffer, and then wheel the cart back in, and then perform the rest of the test inside. And then we haven't figured out yet how to notify them. Right now, I've just been texting people, or they're waiting in their cars, and then I'll text them once I read the result. And we have letterhead that we can, write a note for them if they need a note for work or anything like that.
Does Anthony, I don't know if it's Anthony or the board, who should, anybody have questions or comments for Andrea and Kristen? Anybody? All right, so Anthony, is this?
Yeah, I have a question. I still
Okay.
don't, I'm trying to get it straight here. So this is a facility that basically it's a pay-as-you-go? Is that what you have? In other words, everyone who rolls up in their car will be charged either with a credit card or valid insurance? What's the method of where does your revenue stream come from?
So it's pay out of pocket, and then people can submit it to their receipts to their insurance company if they have that ability. We take FSA cards, so flex spending accounts, we can take those. But the majority of the sites that are doing rapid testing are out of pocket, unless you go to the Stop the Spread sites, and I believe that there are only 2 or 3. And
So did I hear correctly? Are you doing pooling, or are you keeping each of the individual antigen tests separate? In other words, is this a pool, or are you basically saying person A keeps the specimen for person A is not pooled?
Correct.
Not pooling.
So you're not pooling. Okay. So all right. So that leads to the next obvious question, and that is, are there any particular licensing or criteria that the state has set up for testing facilities they must meet in the terms of the technology that they use? In other words, I'm really looking for your, has the system that you're being vetted with respect to positivity, in other words, errors, false positives and negatives. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Basically, what I've read is that they've made the rapid tests so that a layperson can do them. And I think they used lay people to gather a lot of their data just to see, in comparison to trained professionals, what the positivity rate. And I think it was pretty much 100%.
What percent?
100. So it's we're all trained medical professionals. They're basically saying that anybody could perform the test. It's that straightforward. But, we have been in touch with the companies that supply the testing, and we have reps who we can ask questions to or send pictures to if we are unsure about interpreting the result. But as a physician assistant, I have a master's degree. I've been operating on people. I do, very invasive procedures. And Kristen actually does COVID testing at the hospital.
But my question isn't about the testing, the gathering of the sample. It's the reporting part. It's the so what part. In other words.
So they have my medical license and my address. And
so it's a 83%.
What's
positive? True positive.
83%. Okay. And is this the threshold? So in other words, this is accurate up to 83%. So the remaining are false negatives or false positives?
So you can get a true negative where somebody has no disease and the test is negative. That is 100%. And then for the true positive, where somebody has a disease and the test is positive, it's 88.4% accurate. And then if you're looking at false positives, where somebody has no disease and the test turns positive, that's at 83.3%. So that, I guess, is 17% of the time, or 16.5%, you could potentially get a positive result when the person has no disease. And then a false negative where they have the disease and the test is negative, it's 100%. So it's zero. So if they have the disease, you won't get a negative test, is what I'm understanding from that.
And as far as you know, this is the threshold that the state has accepted?
They're accepting any testing at all. They just want any data. So we are reporting the lot number that we're using of the test. We're reporting the specific type, the type of swab, where the test was performed. And then they're taking that data, I guess, and keeping it on their end.
So this is like any other freestanding medical clinic. Not, in other words, this is not a free service or even a quote public service. This is basically a standard clinic where you either have insurance or out-of-pocket pay for services, correct?
We are reducing it for the Littleton residents, but yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
So Anthony, does this sound like something that Littleton would be interested in doing? Letting these ladies set up a testing site?
I guess the question's where at FIBA?
Yeah.
If they're going to do everything, I'm not sure of the requirements for DPH or any of that stuff as far as setting up a testing site, but I'm sure they have done their homework and have more information than I on that right now.
Yeah. We've gone through the state and they're all on board through the Department of Public Health.
So Andrea, then if you were to do this, you'd be on the DPH website for a testing location?
I don't know that. I would have to check on. I have a woman with whom I've been in contact. We've just gone back and forth with multiple emails and spreadsheets, and then we had to register. So we might be actually, because we had to complete a registration form in order to be able to upload the document at the end of each day with the test results. But I can look into that for sure and get your definite answer.
But again, it will only be by appointment only. So it's not like we're going to have carloads of people lining up down the road like you see on the TV at the tents. It's not going to be like that.
So, yeah, Lisa, if they're using FIBA and they're setting up everything and it's all approved, I don't know that they'd need any approval as far as for the select board.
Okay, and what about liability for the town if there was an accident?
Private.
It's a private, yeah. I don't think it's clear. This is a private operation. They may as well be opening up a cannabis, retail outlet. Same idea. In fact, the cannabis operation has more requirements.
Yes, they do. Scott, do you have any questions or comments at all?
No, I guess, I think just in receiving some of the other questions, like from the townspeople and stuff, I mean, if they can do it, it's on a private site and, it's a private site through a private company, and they're charging a fee. If, they can pretty much do that, without an issue, as long as the townspeople, it's made clear that, that it's not run by the town.
Okay. All right. So I guess, Andrea, if you can get that little bit of information that you were talking about, reporting to the DPH.
Yep.
Maybe come back next week.
Okay.
Do you guys think that there's anybody else that we need to, Jim or select board, you don't have to run it by anybody? Okay.
I talked to Jim about it a little bit, and I think he feels the same way. If they're going to do it under that auspice of being a private company, and if it is on a private location, that's even better. But it can only help in the long run. It's something that you guys would be in total control of.
Who? Not us.
And Andrea, the group, not the Board of Health, not the board, not the town. Wouldn't have anything to do with it. It would be her company's, testing facility.
Right.
All right. So I guess we want to make sure that there was no connection with the town.
Right.
In the advertisement or however the promotion of it. So.
And that's why I asked about the DPH because, I know a couple of months ago when I was looking for a testing site for myself, I just went to DPH's website, looked for something closest to my residence, and then it popped up. And that's what a lot of people do. And that's why I was asking Andrea if she was going to be, had that same ability to register with DPH, so her site would pop up if somebody wanted to do. It would list the hours, how to do it, by appointment only, call this number.
Yep. Kristen or Andrea, Kevin told me that there's only going to be, you only have 1,000 tests. Does that mean you'll be done after 1,000, or will you, if it goes well, you'll get more?
Yeah, we can get more. We just didn't know, obviously I don't want to buy thousands and thousands and then not end up using them, but.
Oh, I bet you'll use them.
And, I don't know if we're happy to work with the town too, if there's a want for that. I'm not trying to do this whole thing on my own and say, I live in the town, and I know that on the moms pages on Facebook, everyone talks about how they can't get a test. And I know even personally, it's been hard to get a test, and they're not the gold standard PCR, but they're still accurate enough to at least guide people with regards to quarantining and just sort of being safe. And they're quite accurate early on if you're symptomatic. So I think it's a nice thing to offer to our residents. And it's not all about my business, so I don't know. I don't know if you want to be involved or not. If you do, then we could work with you as well. But we're not opposed to that either. But if you don't, we're happy to do it on our own.
Okay. All right. If you can meet with us next week, I don't know, Janet, if we can get them on the agenda, if you get a little bit more information and a little bit more streamlined, so we can just hear what you have to say. I don't think anybody is going to be opposed to it, but just to make sure, any signage doesn't include Town of Littleton on it. And I don't know how you would get the word out, if you would be on Littleton Facebook page or anything like that, or website. I guess you can't do that.
Yeah. So, we've really spent hours and hours having everything, all our ducks in a row. So I don't know, besides checking with the DPH just to see if we're on the site, what else would you be looking for us to come back next week?
In what Anthony said, no connection with the town, that just it's a private. And I don't know, I guess maybe we don't even have to know that. You just say that, and
well, then that's fine. We can have no connection with the town.
Sounds to me like to proceed at your own risk.
I would have thought personally that the town would want to sort of publicize that they're offering testing in some way, but that's fine. I have a business, I advertise my business, and
we can do it
on our own.
And Andrea, that could be a possibility. If you just send Joe an email and exactly what's going on, and we could just run it by town council as far as just the way to just have no liability back to the town.
Right. I think we even sent, I have liability insurance. I just need an address to add on to my liability insurance to cover us.
Well, wouldn't you be adding FIBA address?
Yeah, I just we didn't know if the town would want us to do it somewhere else. I think that there was just a misunderstanding of.
We thought you guys wanted us to be involved with the board.
Right.
It was a little bit confusing. We thought you guys were on board with this, so. But we can do it.
Just out of curiosity, Andrea, is your test valid for international or national travel from state to state that has placed restrictions, or do they require the PCR only?
Majority of them require PCR, but there are several states in the US that don't require the PCR. They require either the PCR or an antigen test. So it,
So in other words, Florida or Texas. Do I have it right?
no, Maine actually also.
Oh, right. Forgot about that. Yes. The other raging center. Yep. Got it.
Maryland didn't specify. I haven't really looked into all of them, but I know that there are definitely some. So I don't even think you need a test to go to Florida, to be honest.
Just to leave it. Sorry. Yep.
Great. Any questions?
So we'll send an email to Joe.
Yeah, and as far as once you get up and going, and if town council has no objection, that we can just let people know, we could look into that. I'm not sure if you're asking anything else at this point.
No.
Oh, okay.
Any, okay. All right, great.
All right.
Thank you. All right, and still going with correspondence. Louise, do you want to give us an update on the temple that we did last week? The site visit.
Yes, so we had a meeting at the temple in Groton last week, and it was all three members of the Groton Board of Health, myself, Lisa Russarina, and Stephen Gentili and Jim Garepi were there. And we were there, and the fan was on. You could hear it plainly. It's very loud. And Steve Gentili had bought a sound meter. And so he and Jim and Russ Arena and the chair of the Groton Board of Health went around the property line and around their houses and took some readings. And the readings they got were 10 to 12 decibels above an ambient reading, but like before the fan went on. So it's definitely much louder with the fan. So Jim was going to go to the state and talk to a contact that he had about the next steps. And what was Groton Board of Health going to do next? I can't remember. Do you remember, Lisa?
Well, I think, didn't they, well, I think Steve is trying to get onto their agenda with some members.
Their next meeting.
Of the temple too.
Mm-hmm. And so the temple has offered to, they got a price to install a sound attenuator of $14,000, and they've offered to split the cost. So obviously Steve and Russ don't want to pay $7,000. They don't want to pay anything. So that's what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, excuse me, I sent an email to Steve to maybe see if we can get another estimate or somebody else. And it was, you and I were talking, definitely noticeable.
Yeah.
The fan went off at 8 o'clock and we were standing next to an electrical, I always forget what this word, not a terminal. What's that box?
Transformer.
We couldn't hear the transformer with the fan on. And we were standing right next to it. We were within 5 feet of it. Once the fan went off, we were able to hear the transformer. So it's definitely noticeable. So let's keep that on the front burner for those guys.
Yeah, we need to stay on that and just be a presence at every meeting for them to bring it to a close, because it's been like a year that they've been trying to get this resolved.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any other correspondence that they want to talk about? There was a vaccination. Well, there was go ahead. Anybody else have stuff? I have a letter from Sam Alvarez, but did he contact you at all, Janet, about reopening? How they're reopening? I know he talked to Scott. Scott suggested maybe waiting till the spike was over.
Reopen, I'm sorry, the name.
Reopening the library.
I just passed on the message. I don't have anything else.
Okay. I told him to talk to you about getting onto the agenda or to discuss it,
So
but I don't think he's here tonight.
No, he wanted to get on at the end of the month, so he's on the 27th.
Okay, perfect. Nobody else has any correspondence? There was one about vaccines. And I think, Scott, you replied to that too. Is he still on? Did he leave?
I think he left.
All right, so he sent an email, and I'd like to maybe get this website or this web address to email address, web address, whatever you want to call it, onto the website and maybe LCTV. It's www.mass.gov/info/details. When can I get my COVID-19 vaccine phase 1? And it will send you to the state website, and it has it gives you an idea of the groups that will be vaccinated and coming soon. It says there's nothing really set in stone yet. So maybe we should put that up.
Lisa, Jim, I spoke with Jim about that yesterday because I've been fielding a lot of phone calls, and he's working on something also that's more Littleton specific as Littleton can be.
Okay.
And Neshoba specific with the links. So I know he was working on that yesterday afternoon. I haven't seen a final copy yet though.
Yeah, I just know, in response to the correspondence from Susan Silverberg, we are at the mercy of the state government, and they have the final authority. I'm quoting what I read somewhere, that this state has a final authority, and it's not been very forthcoming with a timeline for distribution plans for the vaccine. So unprecedented times, we're at the mercy of the state. So we don't have any that information about vaccines and when they'll be ready yet either. So anybody want to comment at all? Anything else? Then there was just the edited mission, not even a mission statement, but the Board of Health recommendations that Louise had edited. Did you guys all get a chance to read that?
Yeah, that all looks great.
Yeah. Mike approved. Gino, did you get a chance to read it?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay. So Janet, can you get that on the Board of Health website next to the mission statement, the edited version? All right. Great. All right. So anybody else have anything? Oh, we need to do a picture. Oh, the minutes for December 20th. Can I get a motion to approve those?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of December 20th, 2020.
I second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. Kevin Baker,
Yes.
Gino Farloni,
Yes.
Louise Nichols,
Louise Nichols, yes.
Mike Zeldin,
Mike Zeldin, yes.
and Lisa Flanagan, yes. All right. We have member comments.
Did you guys end up having your picture taken?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dave said he was going to do
No,
that.
not yet. We're still waiting for that.
So don't everybody disappear before you do that.
We have to. I think my camera's broken.
No. Otherwise, they go back for the ZBA. We haven't had a meeting in 2 months, so they're going back and just taking random pictures. Those are not going to be flattering. So you want a chance to smile.
You guys want to do that now?
Yeah.
Maybe will it be a dartboard somewhere?
Hey, how are you going to get everybody?
I don't know what they're doing with this. All right.
It's for the annual.
Wait a minute, let me put my glasses on so I can see.
Get ready to be however you want to be viewed. You ready?
So it looks like Katrina's still on.
I don't see her. She's not. I've got it set so that if the video is muted, I don't see you.
Okay.
All right.
You gonna take all at once, everybody, or just one at a time?
Smile.
This looks pretty, Gino.
I just took it. Let me get one more. Is this this is everybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. One more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Smile. Perfect. Okay.
You took everybody all at once or you individual?
I got you all.
Did you get Gino?
I got Gino.
Because I only see myself there. I don't see nobody else.
I got you, Gino. I got everybody.
I've been smiling for an hour.
All right. So any member comments?
Yeah, you did a good job tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike?
The downward spiral.
Oh, I know. Awful.
It's depressing.
Ah.
I appreciate Katrina's report so much, but boy, it's hard to listen to.
Oh, I wasn't talking about Katrina's report. No. You're missing the drift.
Oh.
No. I'm talking about how we got here.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'll be all right another couple months.
So next step is any public comments?
No hands are raised. We
Okay.
only have 2 left in the everyone else is left.
Yeah. Thanks, Anthony and Katrina and Dave. Any next meeting? Next Wednesday?
Okay, 7 o'clock.
You
Is that
going
all
to
right?
vote to adjourn?
Is that all right with everybody?
Yes.
The only risk we run by doing Wednesdays is the usual thing, and that is Thursdays when the state comes out with the official numbers, and we lean on Jim to go fishing on Wednesday to get the numbers so that we can at least be up to date to see where we are. And this is the crucial period.
Right.
Assuming the testing is actually going on at the same pace, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just want to remind everybody, not a problem meeting Wednesday. It's a question of, do we if we're trying to help out the school committee make decisions and others make decisions, including the library, about opening, which by the way I consider premature at best. Okay.
It was pretty. Not to interrupt you, Mike.
Sure.
I am, but it was very limited. No browsing or anything like that. So 4 to 6 patrons per hour, and only 3 hours a day for 3 days a week. So it was very, very limited. So, and they still encourage curbside service. So we'll get to that when he shows up. So it wasn't a full, hard opening or anything like that. So
I wasn't worried about, just indoors.
Yeah, right. So I don't think we can move it to Thursdays, our meeting.
No, I wasn't suggesting we should.
Okay.
Just warning that the data we will get will be lagging, or pressure on Jim to get it for us among all his other stuff that he's doing. I'll keep after him.
Jim has so much pressure on him already. So.
Oh, he bears it well.
All right. So the next meeting will be Wednesday, January 20th.
Yeah.
7 o'clock.
Yeah, Inauguration Day.
Oh,
You're right.
are you going down to DC?
I did the last time.
What?
Last week, Gino was there.
You were in DC last week, Gino?
No, I said 4 years ago, I got invited to go there.
And did you go?
Yeah.
Really?
But he wasn't invited this, just to be clear, he's not invited this time.
I don't think anybody's invited this time.
Oh, I got invited.
You did?
Yeah, they needed an elderly person to test the system. The canary in the capital. What do we call it?
The canary. I got it.
All right. So who wants to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Anybody
I hope I see you guys soon.
Anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mike. I'll do a roll call. Kevin Baker. Yeah.
Kevin Baker, where are you?
Gino,
Gino say yes.
Louise.
Louise says yes.
What does Mike Zeldin say?
Why does Louise always look like she's up to mischief? She just looks like, like the answer is
She's
yes.
happy. She's happy to see you.
No, she looks like the little girl who used to sit next to me in grade school and just constantly giggled and got into trouble.
Oh, all right. And Lisa Flanagan, yes. So, okay, all set.